Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Character Analysis. Now, the past few episodes I've been getting Last of Us gameplay, but this episode there'll be no Last of Us gameplay just to kind of go along with the character analysis. I've been doing it, but I had to delete Last of Us because I finished the story, of course, and just had to get it for some space. So there'll be no Last of Us gameplay, but not necessarily the biggest part. But if you're curious about, usually I put Last of Us gameplay in the past two character analysis. We had to switch it up a bit, but that's okay, no problem. But today, yeah, we're going to be doing another Last of Us character analysis. We're almost finished. Now, I have a list of the remaining characters I'm going to do now, so we got that in order. And, yeah, I hope this is kind of kicking this series up more. So, yeah, today we're going to be doing Bill. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not going to be doing all the characters, just the really major characters that play a big role in The Last of Us Part 1 and 2. And yeah, we're gonna be talking about Bill, and he plays a pretty good part in, his chapters. So he's featured in The Last of Us Part One. So we're gonna be talking about him. Now, all my info I'm gonna be getting is from the Last of Us wiki, as always. Just because it's a good site, good reads. So yeah, as always with The Last of Us character analysis, The Last of Us wiki. So, and obviously I'll be saying a few things, but my info is from there. But yeah, let's get into it. So, Bill's background in early life before the cordyceps brain infection outbreak, except that Bill obtained mechanical skills at some point as he is skilled at repairing vehicles and building things from scraps. He also adapted to the new world and became a competent scavenger. At some point prior to 2033, Bill and his partner Frank were the only survivors living in Lincoln, Massachusetts, which I imagine it's from Massachusetts, but you know. A town that was populated by a usually large number of infected. However, at some point, Frank left Bill on his own and disappeared to protect himself from the infected and the hunters. Bill constructed many barricades and traps. He also had a smuggling arrangement with Joel and Tess in nearby Boston, smuggling supplies such as food, ammunition, and occasionally medicine into the quarantine zone. By the summer of 2033, Bill owed Joel many favors for unknown reason. Much to Bill's dismay, Joel and Ellie arrive at his safe house in the town of Lincoln. Now, takes events during what we see when we play, disabling many of his traps and alerting the overwhelming swarm of runners to their presence in the process. Bill subdues both of them, fearful that he may have been bitten, although Ellie manages to break free of her restraints and beats Bill with a pipe. Joel quickly gets up and stops Ellie from causing further harm. After a brief argument, Joel asks Bill for a car, with Ellie reminding Bill about the favors he owes to Joel. Bill says he does not have a working car, but there are parts in this town, located in another area of the town. Bill begins to sharpen his machete, sarcastically saying Joel can have his food too. Ellie insults Bill. Sorry, it's kind of funny here. Ellie insults Bill's waistline and he threatens the teenager. Joel calms Ellie down and returns to Bill, insisting the favors that Bill owes him are worth the effort. Then they head towards a church that Bill has converted into an armory. On the way, Bill questions Joel's need for a car and briefly trades insults with Ellie, something Joel tries to stop while killing a trapped runner. Bill asks where Tess is. Joel states that she is busy, leading Bill to think the pair have had a falling out, which Tess ended up dying, if you guys don't know, so spoilers, you know. After defeating more infected, they reach the church. Bill sternly tells Ellie not to touch anything while loading the shotguns for him and Joel to use. Bill asks why Tess would allow Joel to accept such a suicidal mission. When Joel responds that Tess was the one who convinced him, Bill reveals his disappointment, having believed that Tess was smarter than such. Joel does not tell Bill about Tess's fate, instead brushing off his further questions by saying she's busy. Bill begins to tell Joel about his partner Frank, trying to hide his homosexuality while doing so. Now, obviously, if you guys didn't know, um, Bill is gay. Now, there's... I'm going to show a few clips, actually, so I'm going to show a scene because it's pretty important to Bill's character, analysis, and of course, so I'm going to show a few clips later, and yeah, so we'll get to that, but, Bill is gay, so just keep that in mind, and I think that's pretty important for him. But yeah. So saying he had to look after him, he finishes by saying that he cared for someone is good for one thing, getting killed. Before he says more, he sees Ellie touching his comics. He shouts at her, reinforcing what he said before about not touching it anything, but she replies with an obscene gesture irritating him. He turns to Joel, saying she will get him killed. Having had enough, Joel interrupts and asks him if they could just get on with it. Bill finishes loading the shotgun, tossing it to Joel, and said, "Fine, let's get on with it." Um, Now, that also plays what Ellie was looking through. That also just more establishes the fact that Bill is gay, and we'll see a scene later. I'll show that clip a bit later towards the end of this analysis. So we're just going to finish up here. And yeah, before they leave, Bill gives Joel a nail bomb and teaches him how to make them. And he says that he goes on about how there's a military vehicle that crashed into the back of the high school, and that there should be a battery in there to get to get parts together. So Bill jokes how he wanted to get it, but decided against it due to lots of infected being near there. But fuck it, Joel needs a car. When they do reach the school, they find that the battery in the truck is gone. With no other options, they force their way out the back of the school, having to kill a bloater, the strongest of the infected, to do so. Um, yeah, this is the biggest, the most like powerful infected you're gonna see in this part one. The bloater. So that's a good introduction. They manage to reach a house where they take refuge. Joe asks what the plan is, but Bill replies to all their plans are gone, angrily insulting Tess while doing so. Joe goes to retaliate for Bill bringing up Tess, but Bill stops abruptly. And I'm going to show a clip here because it's a pretty important scene, and I'm probably going to do more of this, show clips of important scenes that happen with the characters. But, yeah.
You bring Tess into this. Shove it right up. Nothing to do with...
Jesus. What, you know this guy or something?
Frank.
Who the hell's Frank?
He was my partner. He's the only idiot that would wear a shirt like that. He's got bites. Here. And
I reckon he didn't want to turn, so he...
yeah, I guess not. Well, fuck him.
Yeah, pretty sad scene there. To see Bill's partner, unfortunately, hung himself, self-inflicted. Now that's... He tries to come off as, this is what I've noticed, he tries to come off as a tough guy persona. I really don't care, but you can tell Bill has a soft spot. I mean, everybody does, like, he tries to come off as I really don't care about anything or anybody. But like everybody, I think definitely Bill has a soft spot for certain things. Now, we're going to get into towards the end. Now, Ellie does find the car, and, yeah, so we're going to get into it. They find a truck in Frank's garage, which contains a stolen battery. He checks to see if it is working, finding the battery drained, but the cell's alive. Joe questions what he means. Bill replies that if they get it started, the alternator will recharge the battery. Joel and Bill push it through the streets while Ellie tries to pop the clutch to get it working. She fails the first time, so Bill indirectly insults her. He and Joel proceed to kill several infected on the street, but manage to make it to the top of the hill where the truck actively starts to work. Hopping in the back, the pair signal Ellie to keep driving since more infected are on the way. They safely make it back to Bill's church. Bill makes Ellie stop the truck and goes to leave, Joel getting out to say goodbye. Both briefly remark that Ellie held her own against the infected, but Bill still believes Joel will die soon. Before leaving, he gives Joel a siphon hose so he could obtain gas from abandoned cars. Joel thanks him and expresses his sympathy for the loss of Frank. Bill asks if they're square. We square? Joel tells Bill that they are square. But no longer owes him anything. Bill tells Joel to get the fuck out of his town. Joel and Ellie do so, never seeing the man again. It's pretty unfortunate, but I think Bill ended up just living quietly back in town. Bill is later mentioned by Joel a few months later when they reach the University of Eastern Colorado. Joel states the Fireflies could be using the infected as a form of defense like Bill did, but it's unknown what happened to him after they left, though it can be assumed he is still alive given how he never goes near infected if so he can help it, and fortified the church in the nearby streets with several traps. Now, I like to think he's still living quietly in the Last of Us universe. He's still living quietly in Lincoln, and just kind of taking it easy, and smuggling. Maybe he found a new smuggling partner, in Boston, kind of like Joel. Yeah, I assume eventually. This is just my assumption. He probably eventually put two and two together and found out what really happened to Tess, and just maybe, and just see why Joel didn't really want to talk about her that much. But Bill's a really, he's a tough guy who survives, because he's smart and he's paranoid, but that's what gets you, going in that world. That's what keeps you alive in that world. You don't trust people. You set up the traps kind of like he did, and you just keep surviving, and you're smart about it. And there's he is mentioned in Last of Us Part 2. We're going to talk about that now. Ellie mentions Bill to her girlfriend Dina 5 years later while on their mission for revenge. Dina expresses disbelief at Bill having an entire town to himself. Ellie recalls Bill's traps and how Joel navigated his way through them. Yeah, so we're going to talk more about Bill's homosexuality and how he's gay, which is, I think, a pretty important factor of his character, Now, it's implied that Bill is gay due to the way he refers to his former partner, Frank. He says that although once he cared about Frank, he decided it would be his best to go it alone. Fearing for his life when Joel does arrive, he wishes him go on straight away, expressing a desire to live on his own despite how isolated he would be. Bill is saddened when they later find Frank's body, as we showed, but doing the best not to show it. So, as I mentioned, displaying his grim attitude of brushing things off. Despite Frank being his lover, Ellie steals a gay pornographic magazine from Bill's safe house, jokingly asking Joel, "Why are the pages stuck together?" Further enforcing that the likelihood he was gay. Now, The Last of Us is no stranger to gay couples, which obviously see Ellie and Dina and Bill, but, I think that's, whatever, it's a big thing, but I think it's very important for the development of Bill's character. It's a pretty, it's a thing to pay attention to. Bill is overweight, and Ellie frequently insults him about this, telling him he could afford to lose some of his food. There's just some of his character traits that we already kind of talked about. Just he's kind of rough. He doesn't really talk to a lot of people, and he's just isolated in his town. But yeah, that's Bill's character analysis. I like Bill. Personally, he's a good character. I think it's a good, he's a good guy. He kind of set Joel and Ellie up on their adventure towards Pittsburgh. He set them up with weapons, the car, and everything they'll need. And, regardless of how isolated he wants to be, he does care about people. No matter what, I think no matter what he says, he definitely cares about people. He cares about Frank, even though he doesn't show it. He cares about Joel, even though he doesn't show it. I know he cares about Joel, and he wanted to help Joel out, and he wanted to help him with whatever he needed. Because deep down inside, Bill knew he did owe him favors, and he had to, repay him back. So, definitely he did care about Joel, Frank, and probably even Ellie. I mean, they were trading back blows at each other, but I think he cared about Ellie. I mean, even though he didn't really know her, I think Bill cares about people who care about him and, help him out with things. So I think, Bill has a soft spot, no matter what he says or shows. I think Bill has a soft spot, definitely. So, yeah, but that's pretty much it. So hopefully you guys are enjoying this series. I'm going to kind of do more. I've been kind of slacking on it, but I'm definitely got a creative flow coming through. So make sure to subscribe for more content, like the video, all that good stuff. Discord, Twitch, Instagram, links in the description. And I'll see you guys in the next video.